Welcome to the People of AI podcast, showcasing inspiring people with interesting stories in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm Ashley Oldacre. Let's jump right in. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google. Hi, I'm Ashley.
Hi everyone, I'm Gus.
Welcome to the People of AI podcast. Our guest today is very special. He is known in the community as Sayak Paul, but in Bengali, where he's from, he is known as Sayak Paul. And he is best known for being a machine learning engineer at Hugging Face, where he co-maintains the Diffuser's library. His day-to-day includes contributing features to the library, training, and as he says, babysitting diffusion models, documenting them, and so on. Outside of work, you can catch Sayak watching Suits for the nth time, cultivating his love for TF Core and cloud systems, and connecting with his community. Welcome, Sayak.
It's my pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me here.
All right. Sayak and Gus, you have worked together and known each other for a long time. I'd love for you to tell us a bit how you've met and how that collaboration started.
Gus, why don't you take it away?
Of course, one thing that I love working is with the community and collaborate on new projects, on ideas. Sometimes we do mentoring. And since for a long time, I've been working with Sayak in terms of, hey, let's do this project. And then we collaborate on delivering like an integration, a blog post, publishing a new model on TensorFlow Hub. I guess Sayak is the biggest model published on TensorFlow Hub externally. And the fun thing is that I sometimes look at his numbers to compare against mine published internally. So I say, oh, come on, man, come on. You're making my life harder here. And we've collaborated with on the Google Summer of Code. We mentored people. Lots of work, and this is where I like work with the community, right? It's people that really understand the subject. I learn a lot. If I can help a little bit, amazing. But I guess I sometimes think I get more than I give because I learn so much from everyone, and specifically from Sayak. I learned a lot, so thank you very much for that.
When was the first time you met? How did that meeting occur? And like Sayak, what was your first impression of working with Gus, and how did that relationship evolve?
I think it was for a model publication. Back in the day, TensorFlow Hub didn't used to support TensorFlow Lite models, at least in the external capacity. So I had this cool TensorFlow Lite model converted, and I was collaborating with the TensorFlow Lite team to see how we can publish that converted model on TensorFlow Hub. And that's when Gus came into play, and our conversations took off from there. And since then, it has been an adventurous ride of models, blog posts, co-mentoring a lot of folks, just life-related stuff, soccer, talking over Ronaldo, and so on. So it's been great.
But I'd love for you to tell us more about what you're doing and how you got there. And I see folks on the podcast are not going to be able to see this, but you're wearing your Hugging Face t-shirt. So you're representing where you work. So would you like to tell us a bit about what you do?
For sure. Another fun fact. I got this t-shirt before I joined Hugging Face. So yeah, as you generously introduced myself, I work as a machine learning engineer at Hugging Face, where I am one of the lead maintainers of diffusers. I train and babysit diffusion models, contribute impactful features to the diffusers library, and I document and just share about diffusion models. And I sometimes also mud up the social media with emojis, funny emojis. But yeah, that's briefly what I do at my work. My journey, I think, has been interesting because I got to Hugging Face for my open source contributions to libraries such as transformers datasets, which are primarily maintained at Hugging Face with the help of the community. And I also take a deep interest in other open source machine learning frameworks like TensorFlow, Keras, and more recently Keras Core. I have been a long time contributor to TensorFlow and the ecosystem libraries that come with TensorFlow, such as TensorFlow Hub, TensorFlow Extended, TensorFlow Lite, and so on. So yeah, I think machine learning is all I do. Don't really have any other hobbies and so on. So yeah, I see myself doing machine learning for as long as I can see in the foreseeable future. So yeah, that's about me.
I think given how well we've been doing that, I think we're doing a great job there. I've known Zach for quite a while from his community contributions, and I think that would be great if you could share a little bit how was your journey from the open source, from when you started as a open source and then start learning machine learning. How was it?
For sure. But I think most of the folks these days start open source probably when they are in college or in high school. But for me, at least in the Indian context, it was very opposite. I started open source after I joined a company. Which is kind of a bit unorthodox, I would say, at least for my generation. So I mean, I always wanted to pursue machine learning. I got introduced to the subject during my undergrads in late 2015. Back then, ResNets, residual networks, were just becoming a thing. They had just, achieved state of the art on ImageNet. So in late 2015, I ended up taking this undergrad course called Pattern Recognition and Machine Learning. I remember, glaring through the pages of this book written by Christopher Bishop, which is still a gold standard textbook in our domain. And immediately I fell in love with the subject, and I had decided I am going to pursue this no matter what. But when I graduated, I actually did not end up in a job that required machine learning expertise. It was a regular software engineering, web development kind of gig. Of course, no disrespect to that, but that was not I actually had wanted. But yeah, back in my mind, I always knew I'm gonna pursue machine learning no matter what. So I ended up quitting my job because my mind was not being taken further without having a job. Because I was kind of hell bent that hey, enough is enough. I'm gonna rediscover myself, rediscover my passion for
Wow.
machine learning, and sort of relearn things. And that's when I got attracted to the open source machine learning community, because I was taking this course by Fast AI, and Fast AI is an entirely open course. It's available to anyone for free, and there I got to kind of appreciate and truly imbibe the spirit of open source community. Since I have been benefited a lot by the open source community, I think it's kind of my responsibility to also try to give it back to the community in my own ways, and that's where it all started. And yeah, I'm still trying my bits.
Thanks for sharing that journey. And I have a bunch of questions around that. I think before we sort of go further, I'd love for you to talk about what community is, what community contributions are, and how that all fits within your passion.
Yeah, sure, let me try to take those one by one. Well, what is a community? I think it's a very subjective question. I'll try sharing my bits here. I think anyone that is, trying to be a part of the entire field, machine learning, is probably a community member. And you do not necessarily have to, you know, be a core, machine learning practitioner. You can still be, practicing something else. Let's say, web development, and you can still be a part of the machine learning community by, trying to contribute in various different ways. For example, you might be working at the intersection of machine learning and web development, like the TensorFlow JS folks are doing. It's much more about, state of the art web development practices, of course, in the machine learning context. So I think anyone that is a part of the entire field, at least trying to do something, let's say contributing to libraries or writing up blog posts, or giving talks or teaching someone about it, or trying to incorporate machine learning in different ways. I think collectively as a whole, I would like to consider and call that to be a community. At least in my opinion, that's a community. So yeah.
Yeah, and so that includes this community essentially is coders or non-coders, or sort of, I mean, I'm assuming you have to code, you have to be a developer, or do you, in order to be a part of the community?
I don't think so, because policymakers are extremely important, ethicists are extremely important, psychologists are extremely important, and with the recent boom of generative AI, I think the repercussions of AI policymaking The repercussions of safety around this, large scale systems have become very prevalent, and they necessarily do not have to code, but they know a lot about how to, create policies and how to create, safety principles that push the needle forward, but at the same time ensures everyone is welcome, everyone is well respected, we are being inclusive enough, we are not being, targeted towards a particular race, and so on. So I don't think the all the community members necessarily have to be coders. So yeah, I just gave you a couple of examples of practitioners who do not necessarily have to code, but are extremely important and valuable to the community.
Yeah. Gus, you work a lot with the community too. Would you want to add to that, or?
One thing I think about the community, it's kind of a superpower. When you find out about it, and you start to be part of it, it opens up a completely different perspective for you in terms of what you can do, how you can meet people with similar interests, how you can learn. So we have many communities for different technologies, and being part of the technology you like, for example, Sayak is part of the TensorFlow community, for example. He contributes, he works with that. A lot of people have learned with him, so there's a huge opportunity to talk to people and see, oh, this is what you're doing, this is cool, nice, how do you do it? So I think I always tell people, like, my job is cool and all, but talking to the community is the best part by far. You learn so much, you have the opportunity to help other people. That's all. I mean, you get, when I get back home after an event, it's like, oh my god, I helped someone today. That's it, right? You feel great because you were useful. So this is great. I think we could also, since we're talking about community, Sayak is known for being one of the most active Google developer experts, the GDE. And it's like there's so many contributions, so many different similar fields, of course, all machine learning, but in different parts of it. And I would like him to talk a little bit about it. How was the GDE important for you? How do you face it today? What was the impact on your life?
Yeah, and maybe start by sort of explaining what a GDE is.
Sure. So GDE stands for Google Developer Experts. It's a program run by the team at Google, called Google for Developers, I think. And one of the objectives of this program is to recognize extraordinary practitioners all across the globe that are working on several technologies that was brought to the world by Google in some way or the other. And these individuals are known for their contributions to the community in different ways, like in the form of mentorship, in the form of technical writing, in the forms of like code contributions to libraries maintained at Google, and so on. So that's roughly about the program. And impact wise, I think the GDE program has got to be one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life. I think I have been a long time GDE in machine learning as well as Google Cloud, and I became a GDE in machine learning in 2019. Long time. I'm a GDE for TensorFlow core, and yeah, I got to know about the GDE program from one of the local events, and the very thought that you can be, recognized by Google just for your technical credibility, that had an appeal to me. But of course, beyond that appeal, just thinking that you will be connected to like-minded folks, you will have the opportunity to, influence and impact a whole generation of people with just your work, with hard and honest work. And that connected with me instantly, and this is something that was deeply imbibed in my own upbringing as well, like, reaching to people with your work, with your outlook towards life. So that immediately connected with me, and I immediately sort of started looking for ways to become a GD. That was one hard long road, but I'm glad that it came to me after a lot of hardships, because the taste of hard work is amazing. The fruits of hard work taste amazing to me. So yeah, and since then it has been a wild and adventurous ride. I've got to meet and know folks like Gus, and I've got to meet other community members like Changsung and so many others. I mean, I can't even name all of them right here right now. So I've got the chance to collaborate with them, got the chance to get featured on many different, official Google communication mediums and so on. But beyond that, as I was mentioning, the ability to connect with people in the most organic way possible by means of your technical credibility is something that I deeply admire and I deeply respect. So that's why I keep saying GD program has got to be one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life, and I'm grateful.
I guess one thing that's great is I talk a lot with other GD, right? Not only ML GD, but even in other fields like Android, cloud. And Sayak's name always comes by. In terms of impact, I guess you're doing an amazing job. Impact a lot of people to get started. You see the path that you paved in terms of, oh, I'll build content, I'll keep pushing great content. I'm going to do content that's helpful to people that they can learn. And that definitely shows to people, hey, this is a great path. So not only your hard work helps you, helps other people coming behind you. So congrats from the community on that. Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to come back to, you said something interesting about how the taste of hard work is rewarding, or hard work feels good. And I'd like for you to maybe talk more about that, because it hasn't been easy. It's easy to talk about the accomplishments, and now that you are recognized in the community, I'd love for you to say more about your journey, how you got there, and what the hard work actually looks like.
Sure. I think hard work to me kind of means a very collective spectrum, not just the intellectual hard work, the mental hard work, as well as the physical hard work to, stay fit, stay healthy, so that you can, put your mind to what you had set out to do. So first was my intellectual barrier, because I do not consider myself to be an amazing coder. I do not consider myself to be an amazing orator or writer or anything for that matter. I've never been a topper of my class. I've always been a very mediocre guy. During my high schools, I didn't get any positions. In my college, fortunately, I put in some more hard work and got some positions. But those things, I don't think matter necessarily. And then when it was my time to delve deeper into the subject, of course, of machine learning, I faced a number of challenges. Fortunately, mathematics used to be my favorite subject during my high school, and I'm still reaping the benefits out of it, because during my high school, the only thing that I did was solving differential equations, integral equations, and so on, and I'm reaping the benefits out of it, so to speak. But then again, programming was something I was struggling quite a lot, and I didn't have a whole lot of folks to come and support me in that journey. I'm not necessarily complaining about it, but also having the belief that you are surrounded by like-minded folks who are jovial, who are kind of kind and passionate and happy for you to sort of teach about certain things that you do not know, is a very kind feeling. So I didn't have that. I'm not necessarily complaining about it, but having that would have been nice. So
So it sounds like you were lacking that community that you've
yeah,
helped to create. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my first intellectual barrier, and I used to always question myself, hey, I don't have the app programming knowledge. How would I get through any of it? Because I personally prefer to think in as a programmer, because if you can break things in terms of code, you can, I think, you can visualize things pretty clearly, because you have some sort of a control. You can implement a very particular complex concept, and you have got a lot of control when you are able to do that. But back in the days, I didn't have that kind of tooling. I mean, these are just intellectual tools that you just make available to yourself. I didn't have that. Then there was financial barriers, and so on. So I had to join a job I didn't quite like, and then after joining the job, I was not happy with myself, as my mind was not being taken further, as I mentioned. So I had to quit my job without having a job, and from the kind of culture I come from, that is believed to be a big thing. Yeah, and I had to sort of reinvent myself. I had to relearn everything.
What? So
Yeah.
that moment where you decided, okay, I'm gonna quit my job. That must have been huge. What were you thinking in that moment? What led you to make that leap, that decision?
I decided to myself, well, let's put in more hours. I was talking to myself basically, since you enjoy dabbling in the area of machine learning so much, let's allow yourselves enough time, and let's see where does that take you. So when I was deciding, I just decided to have fun, basically. To be completely honest with you, of course, at the back of my mind, I knew that I'm gonna be unemployed, but at the same time, I think I was more delighted to finally be able to get back to machine learning full time, even though in an unemployed capacity. But I still consider learning opportunities to be like the gold standards of everything. So I took that as a learning opportunity because it was not just for machine learning. I had learned quite a few things about life in general. So I was basically enjoying learning a whole bunch of stuff. It was amazing, relearning some of the stuff I had studied back in my undergrad days.
If someone were in your position now, what would you sort of advise them on? What software, what platform, what resources, like what specifically how did you get started? And I guess, would you do that again, or would you recommend different things now?
For me, from my context, I don't think I would have done anything differently even to this day. Now, what did I do back then to relearn stuff? I took the most accomplished and most widely talked about courses and books from the community. Like the Fast AI course is pretty well known. The Deep Learning AI specialization is pretty well known. Some of the textbooks that are there, like the Deep Learning textbook, the Grokking Deep Learning book, I studied all of those things, and I also ensured that I was putting my learning into practice by trying to code things.
What were you coding? What are the things you were coding?
So I was basically, taking course exercises, book exercises, and I was basically, copying and pasting the solutions just to see how they would run locally. And then I used to, tweak certain knobs in those solutions and see how the outputs would change. And then I used to take ideas from the Fast AI course because it gave a couple of, application ideas. And then I used to take the existing solutions and just see if how changing knobs impact the outputs. So
That's amazing. I'd just like to add here that that's so what Zach did in terms of I'm going to just to study everything, try, change. One thing he said that's very important, I always tell people, he said, I get example, I put the answer, and then I keep changing it and keep trying details. That's very important because you see, this is how it works now. So you keep doing that until you get to a point where, oh yeah, I understand how this works now. This is part of what I know now. And that's a great tip there.
Yeah, so the tweaking is like you actually get into the ins and outs of things and you really figure out how it works.
yeah,
And to our listeners, we'll make sure to link all of these resources that Sayak is sharing in the show notes so you will know and you'll have access to them as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so you studied, you tweaked, played around with all these models, you figured out how they work. What was the next step?
Yeah, I think the next step, I had already submitted that to some divine benevolence. I was waiting for my opportunity. At that point in time, I think I gained a little bit of confidence. I mean, I was feeling confident enough to, take the papers I used to like at that point in time and implement them from scratch to test my understanding. Because this is something I have taken from this very popular course called CS231N. It's a course on computer vision taught at Stanford University. It's a very popular course, and they used to always, supplement their lectures with pseudocode, and they used to always, talk about API design and stuff like that. And the course instructors always used to encourage that you gotta break that down in terms of code so that you have a clear understanding of what's going on. And that stuck with me, that resonated with me very much, because at the end of the day, I'm a software engineer. So I want to be able to code things as I like. In the year of 2019, early 2019, I was feeling a bit of confident enough to implement research papers from scratch. At least the papers I used to like at that point in time, VGC16, ResNets, InceptionNet, and so on. And I was putting up my implementations on GitHub, and I was just sharing about my GitHub implementations. And one day, someone from PyMeth Search reached out to me saying, "Hey, would you be interested in working with us?" And that was my moment. I
Wow.
finally got my opportunity to work as a deep learning practitioner. And yeah.
That's amazing. So you actually got your first job in machine learning through your open source community contributions.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's right.
That's incredible and explains your love and your passion for the space. If you were to advise someone who was starting out now, or if you were to advise yourself back when you were starting, what advice, practical as well as philosophical, would you share with a person who is in the same situation as you were, software developer, software engineer, who wants to get into machine learning? What would you recommend now?
A couple of things. First would be on the psychological side. It's a very popular quote from a movie called The Lone Survivor. It says, anything in life that's worth doing is worth overdoing. So I tend to overdo a lot of stuff. Like, I really like working with image classification models, and I have probably coded more than 500 image classification models in my life. I mean,
Wow.
Haley, I can produce evidence for that. If you go on tfhub.dev and search for my account, you will actually find more than 100 image classification models right there.
Wow.
So I really like to, redo a whole lot of stuff that I like. Like, I would code up the same image classification model and train it on different datasets because I really like doing that stuff. I cannot imagine my life without those things. So, you might have to redo a lot of stuff to be able to feel really confident about it, because it also has to relate with karate. There's this very popular saying from Bruce Lee: you do not need to learn more than 100 techniques. You just need to learn 5 techniques and be a master of it. So that's something I truly believe in. And that goes on to saying, focus on the fundamentals, like really, really grab and capitalize on them. Because if you know about the fundamental bits, you will be able to, move on to the advanced bits pretty well known. Because advanced bits are actually built on top of the fundamental bits. So that's what I truly believe in. My second tip would be to always stay hands on as much as possible. Of course, if you are more interested in theory, of course, by no means you probably should stick to theory. But if you have a solid knack for practical implementations, I think that will help you to think better. That will help you to come up with reasonable and tractable solutions, which in turn will make you a better practitioner. And third would be to just keep at it and keep at it. I mean, success is probably overrated at this point in time. I am more interested in failures, because if you have failed hard, you probably have also learned hard. So do not be afraid to fail fast, and continue to move and push the needle forward. Of course, at the same time, you must take some time off for yourself to sort of warn all the negative energy out, but always believe in yourself and just continue to move forward. So
That's beautiful. So, 1, read up, learn, get into the theories, the papers. Step 2, try things, practice things, break things, learn things, change things, get in there and actually get hands-on experience. And third is just don't give up. Just keep working, keep at it. So, great. I'm going to take this advice for myself. All right. So I think now we've talked a little bit about your journey to how you've become this incredible force in the community and this incredible developer and this machine learning expert. And I'd love for you to talk more about, let's get into what you currently do. And I'm going to hand it over to Gus for this.
Great stories. I like your tips. I might follow them myself. The idea is Sayak has been working with image models, as he said, for a long time, and now he works on Hugging Face on the Diffusers library. And to start, what's Hugging Face, briefly, and then it would be nice to what's the Diffusers library, and then I would love to talk about generative AI and what do you think about the impact and all this kind of stuff. But let's start with what's Hugging Face.
Yeah. So Hugging Face is, of course, it's a company. We work at the intersection of science and engineering. We try to promote open source and open science as much as possible. And you might have caught our name for our, seminal library called Transformers. In fact, as a fun fact, it's one of the few libraries after TensorFlow that got to more than 100,000 stars on GitHub. It provides state of the art, implementations of models in three different frameworks: TensorFlow, JAX, and PyTorch. So Transformers is just one of the libraries that's primarily maintained at Hugging Face, and it's, of course, Hugging Face is it's got to be popular for that library. But as I mentioned, we are a company that's trying to democratize good machine learning by working at the intersection of science and engineering and promoting the spirit of open source and open science as much as possible. So yeah,
This is great. Hugging Face is, how do I say, it's absurdly popular. And if you do machine learning, you heard about it. So, but it's always good to hear from someone from the company. But tell me about the diffusers library. What is it? Explain to me as if I'm 5.
for sure. I'm gonna first explain it like you are 50, and then I'm gonna get back to what you asked me.
Closer to my age then.
So diffusers, it's an open source Python library that provides modular toolbox for accessing pre-trained state of the art diffusion models, all kinds: text to image, text to audio, video models, molecular models, and so on. But it's not just for inference. As I mentioned, it's a modular toolbox that also lets you train your custom diffusion models on your datasets. So yeah, that's roughly about it. I think a sparkling of inspiration for our readers. If you're feeling low just because you do not know about diffusion models, well, here goes my story. I had no clue about diffusion models. Fast forward to 17th August 2023, I basically laid a diffusers release. So, as I mentioned, just keep believing in yourself. If you are interested enough, you will find a way. So you do not have to feel low just because you do not know about diffusion models or text to image models or something. There's always room for learn. There's always time. So if you are interested, just pick it up. You will learn it.
One thing that we see from the generative AI, there was an explosion last year, right? Last year at like maybe July something. If you remember last year, there was at some moment Stable Diffusion. They open sourced a model that would go from text to image. And that from that point onwards, it's like they opened the Pandora box, right? It's like boom, everything started to happen. Yeah. I'd like to know your perspective on how do you see the field. Let's keep to image generation because it's too broad to talk about stuff. How was it for you when that day happened and after that, right? Because I remember talking to you we were talking over chat about exactly that. So how was that for you because that's the library you work today, right? Does exactly that.
So before diffusion models, there were GANs, generative adversarial networks, which could generate realistic faces. There's actually a site called photothatdoesnotexist.com. Probably, if I'm remembering correctly, that's the website address, photothatdoesnotexist.com. I mean, the website will generate you photos of faces that are so realistic that you will start to believe that, okay, these are actual people, but they are not. So that's the kind of realism that GANs gave us. But they also had a number of problems. Like, they were extremely difficult to train, they were extremely difficult to control, they were not that flexible enough for the developers, and so on. Now with diffusion models, I mean, incorporating some kind of text when you are generating an image, it should feel liberal, because you can immediately think of n number of different use cases. For example, for creative minds, let's say you are a painter and you are looking for some inspiration and you have hit a writer's block where you are unable to get past certain restrictions, certain intellectual restrictions, and so on. Then you could prompt a system like Stable Diffusion or DALL-E 2 or Imagen with what you are thinking, and maybe you can get some ideas, and that might actually help you to get rid of your writer's block. And OpenAI in fact did this study, and in majority of the cases, creative professionals were able to get rid of their writer's block, which is pretty commendable. Now, come to think of other use cases, like more practical oriented use cases, like e-commerce product images. You probably do not have the budget to do an actual photo shoot, but you still have the product image. Now you want that product image to to get rendered into different contexts. You can use diffusion models for that. So these kind of stuff, I'm not essentially saying were not possible with GANs, but the quality was not on par. The quality was far from what you would have expected. Now with diffusion models, that kind of broke. You start seeing amazing amount of fidelity. Suddenly you start seeing amazing amount of diversity, and beyond diversity, fidelity, quality, it's the ability to prompt a system with natural language and get an image that's adhering to the natural language that you are prompting the system with. That's amazing. Let's say a corgi eating a hamburger, that sort of stuff. It's funny, but at the same time, the excitement that you would feel after seeing a corgi trying to eat a hamburger, that's crazy. So coming from the world of GANs, it truly felt liberating, to say the least, to be able to experience such systems. And I decided, okay, it's been a while, diffusion models have been around, let's give it a look. Let's study some stuff. And the deeper I delve into the world of diffusion models, the more love I felt for diffusion models, the more I felt attracted and determined to study them. And yeah, that's exactly what got me into diffusion models.
Yeah, it sounds like the unlocking of these diffusion models unlocked a sort of next level of creativity and of what's possible.
Yeah. I'll give you two more trivia here. One is, first, it was 2015 when diffusion models were proposed in the deep learning context. Like, it was not necessarily for image generation or anything. It was for modeling high dimensional data, highly dense data from Stanford, if I'm not wrong. So it was 2015, and then it was all gone, like completely wiped off of the face of the earth. Now in 2020, this group from Peter Aville's lab, they dropped a paper, a DDPM, and suddenly the field got interested again into studying diffusion models. Then there was another paper from OpenAI with a statement: diffusion models beat GANs on image synthesis. And from there on, the field really took off. After that came a paper on DALI 2 from OpenAI, then Stable Diffusion was released, and so on. So 2015, then 2020, you are sort of reborn again, and everything is just different now. And my second trivia is the production readiness of diffusion systems. Like, in many ways, diffusion systems are the end-to-end products. Like, you do not have to do a whole lot of side hustle to make them work in practice. So in many ways, they are end-to-end products. Like with GANs, there were still a lot of tips and tricks we had to apply to make them really give us the fruits during deployments. But as I was mentioning, 2020 was the year where diffusion models were kind of reborn, and it's 2023. It's not even the end of the year, and we are already seeing a whole lot of different companies actually working with diffusion systems in production. I mean, I can immediately name a couple of companies who are at it, like Adobe Firefly. It's already there in products. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing has been bizarre, has been crazy, but also at the same time extremely rewarding, because it elevates not only developers but also anyone that's creative at their core. So yeah.
That's great. And I guess just to start closing about this topic, one thing that we should always pay attention is the responsible AI usage of these models.
Yeah.
Because one thing that called my attention when it became open source, when they opened Stable Diffusion.
Right, when they made it accessible to everyone on the internet to use it, play with it. Yeah.
At that day, my first thought was, because I know why the other companies didn't make it open to everyone, right? Because putting the boundaries around it's very hard. It's not an easy task.
Yeah.
And when it gets open, now we have to, okay, if it's open, it's the genie is out of the bottle. So we need to explain to people, hey, we have to always pay attention to what you are doing here, right? We have to, and this is the same for large language models, for any generative AI technology. We have to use these responsibly. You have to pay attention.
Yeah.
If we can put some guardrails. So this is something that was, when it happened, I was conflicted. So I, the same day was, oh my God, what happens now? And I think one thing that we have to always call attention is we have to always bear in mind how to use this model the best way possible. I would love Sayak's perspective on this perspective, because for me it was, okay, what I can do here is I can try to talk to people, say, hey, whenever you're using this, it's not like a free-for-all. You have to understand exactly where you apply, how do you apply, and how do you see this perspective?
For sure. No, I personally think this is very important. And I'll share some of the things to make some, concrete assertions to suggest that I care about these things deeply. One, in the context of diffusers, because it's open source, it's an open source Python library, right? And we try to provide, access to the pre-trained state-of-the-art diffusion models. But we also want that access to be as responsible as possible. And there are multiple different ways in which we try to make that access as responsible as possible, is by making sure there's a safety checker enabled by default for the compatible models. Like, let's say you have, prompted the system with some natural language input, and the system has generated images for you. And those images by default would go through some kind of a safety checker, which will tell you if the images are safe to be displayed or not, to ensure those images are not vulnerable, those images are safe for all to see. So that's one way we ensure that we are being as responsible as possible in our capacity. Second would be, these models often come with OpenRel++ licensing, which kind of insists you, if you are using these models, you won't be using this in the illegal ways. So that's another thing. I mean, if you are caught to be using these models in terms that are violating the OpenRel++ licensing, you can be lawfully punished. So I definitely agree that we have a lot of room for improvement here, but I think this is a good start, because when you open it up to the community by also trying to ensure there's some sense of responsibility, I think you also, let them build on top of the shoulders of the giant. You also enable them to investigate what these models are lacking. You also enable them to study the risk factors associated with these models. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
That's perfect. I really thank you very much for bringing this information about the
absolutely.
responsible AI perspective.
Yep.
That's first of all, that's very important. And it's a default behavior from the library, which is amazing. And this is something I hope we can all agree that makes a lot of sense, to have do the best we can to use these models towards good outcomes. That's I guess what most responsible companies are doing. That's great.
There's also a very deep human component involved here, because none of those things can be fully automated. You need to be some kind of an intellectual curator to inspire your communities to be as responsible as possible when you are using these technologies, because awareness is something that we can all contribute to. So that's something I really want to spread across the listeners of this podcast. So whenever you are dealing with technologies like this, you can try to raise awareness, you can try to inspire your communities to make sure they're using these models as responsibly as possible, making sure their safety is not compromised.
And that's the power of contribution too, right? Is when you do community contributions and you play with the models that are already out there, one of the ways that you can tweak things and get into it is by exploring ways of maybe adjusting or tweaking a model to make it more responsible, which would be a really cool project if you would like to add that to your portfolio.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, we are coming towards the end of our conversation and our time together with you, Sayak. This was such an honor and a privilege and such a fun conversation.
Likewise, and pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Sayak, thank you very much. Man, it was amazing talking to you. I know you for a while, We've been working stuff for a while, and I knew this conversation would be amazing because you're a very amazing person. You show this, your hard work, your contributions. Thank you very much for talking with us.
If you would like to learn more about our conversation or our guests, check out the links below. Please subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, give us a 5-star rating. We would love to hear from you, so leave us a comment. We'll read every one. Until next time, thank you for listening.